literally have the guts to come to me and tell me that a single app like Enviso, for example, like the one that I've shared with you guys, they have the guts to tell me that this doesn't have a lot of attack surface. My friends, one, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 different APIs. If anybody has the guts to tell me that main app hacking doesn't have a lot of scope, fuck, dude. Fuck. I just can't teach these guys. I just can't. Luckily, you guys do listen to me, and now you know that main application does have a a literal shit ton of scope of attack surface that you can look into, and especially with documentation like this, it is of the utmost importance that you work with applications that have proper documentation. Why would you go and look at all of this yourself if there is something that has been documented before you? Just so you know, just so you know, it's important as fuck to have documentation. And I know as well, just as well as anybody else, that not all of the documentation for Enviso is quite up to date, but they have code samples for you to fuck with their APIs. What do you want more than this? Would you like them to bring it to you on a golden fucking tray? Fuck's sake, dude. And a lot of people tell me they can't communicate with the API. And look at that, by the way, guys. Like if you look at the leaderboard, the all-time leaderboard, not the last contributors of that Gartner and Viso system that I sent you, on spot number 3, you'll see the amazing ferret. That's my former account. That's my former bug bounty account. Just so if you ever see that guy pop up, even after all of these years of not hacking on this account, I'm literally talking 4 or 5 years, I'm still at the top 3 in this leaderboard. Fuck, right? So I guess you could say that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this little fucker. I squeezed so much money out of them, it's unfair. It's almost unfair. Not really, because I deserve that money. Fuck them. I like to see servers suffer, to be fair. Like that's basically what I go for. I just like to see them suffer and scream and squirrel, and especially in production. Such a good feeling. Oh fuck, I'm recording myself, aren't I? Okay, so back on track before I incriminate myself even further. So what else do we have? Let's move onwards to slide 22. In terms of objects, you can refer to an object by its own ID, or you can say object belongs to user ID if that user has one or multiple objects, of course. So basically, you can say invoices ID equals 1 or invoices owner equals 1, 2, 3. It's an important distinction to make, and also that multi-tenancy distinction. Now, what does that mean? Basically, if you look at slide 23, the old system, every single customer had their own complete system set up. In the new world, basically, these companies have one database system set up, and every customer is on that same database system. That's what we call multi-tenancy. So basically, it means that customer A and customer B, the only thing that separates their data is not logical servers or physical servers or whatever. It is just application logic. So I hope that's clear. Is that clear to everybody here what multi-tenancy actually means? If not, feel free to stop me. Okay, so that seems clear. Then let's talk about primary versus secondary IDORs. Primary IDORs, I think that's clear what that means. You have direct access to a system. You're directly going to access an object, read, update, delete, whatever, directly. A secondary IDOR is you're going to make the system do it for you. And this is where it gets fun because there are multi levels of IDOR. Basically, data gets passed around in between components. And if you are able to talk to a component and you're able to make it do something for you in another component, that's fantastic, isn't it? Like, for example, if you cannot access invoices, if your account doesn't have access to invoices, but there's a module to print invoices, and you can just pass it an identifier and you still see that invoice anyway. Well, there you go, Bob's your auntie. Did I say that right this time, Morgus? Are you proud of me now? Fuck, I tried, dude. Fuck. Bob's your Apache attack helicopter. There we go. So, I think I've explained my relevant experience of bug hunting when it comes to broken access control, when it comes to IDORs. First things first, find the right platform. Don't go for anything like Bugcrowd. Don't go for anything like HackerOne. Everybody and their grandmother is on there. Literally, my grandmother hacks on HackerOne. She's in the top 5. Nice lady. She bakes great cookies. But try something more discreet, like, for example, integrity.com. Or if you haven't heard of this yet, not every day, but sometimes this website called bugbounty.jp, a Japanese bug bounty website, also has good targets and good, good rewards, basically. Oh shit, fuck, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, no, fuck. That's not what I wanted at all. Bugbounty.sa, is that the one? Fuck it, bugbounty.sa. Is that also a platform? Yeah, why not? Never heard of it before, don't know what the reputation is, but give it a shot. You know, you never know. There's so many bug bounty platforms out there. What's that thing called again? Fire Bounty or something? Yeah, it's Fire Bounty. Fire Bounty is great for discovering new things to hack. Sorry, let's see. What do you mean with why? Oh, yes, we hack. Yes, we hack is, well, the thing is, don't feel like you shouldn't hack on this. It's just that I don't recommend this because I recommend integrity. And yes, it's basically one or the other. It's like Team Bella versus Team Jacob or whatever you call that shit. Like, there's basically, these two don't mix. Like, yes, we hack and integrity hate each other guts, but that doesn't prevent you from hacking on there. You shouldn't give a shit about that. You shouldn't give a flying shit about anything besides hacking and bug bounties. So yes, we hack, yes. Do I recommend it? For sure, dude, for sure. There's definitely a lot to be had there as well in terms of programs and applications, and they're getting more and more every day. I think, and I honestly do think that integrity is becoming a little bit bigger sometimes. Yes, we hack, but they have nice as a great API, for example. Their API is fantastic, dude. I'll send you guys the documentation. There we go. And what they also have is Fire Bounty. Fire Bounty is theirs, I believe. Fire Bounty is made by Yes We Hack. And please correct me if I'm wrong. No, that's indeed a Yes We Hack product. So I think you have enough to do there in terms of finding the right application. What should you avoid? Newspapers, blog websites, any type of web shop, any type of business to consumer application should be avoided like the plague. What should you be looking at? Business to business applications, HR, invoicing, CRM. Those things are what matters. Those things are where you should be looking at. Now, I want to ask, are there any questions from you guys at this point? Anything at all? No? Okay, then what I'm going to do is, with all of this newfound knowledge, what I would like you to do, since you guys are in our Discord channel anyway, there's a homework channel, and I will put that up as well. Let's see if we can find it. Fuck, there's homework help. There should be. Yes, for sure, dude. How are you doing, mate? Good to see you, Brave. I'm good, good, thank you. Thanks for joining, by the way. I really appreciate it, mate. Of course, man. Go ahead. Can I help you? Yeah, for sure, dude. For sure, it's very clear what you're asking as well, because I've had that exact same feeling as you guys. At the very start, when you do bug bounties, basically the question that was asked is like, okay, how do you get over the fact that other people have such an advantage over you if they're so long in the field, right? If if I've been doing this for so long and you're just learning broken access control, how can you get into it when you have so many assets to discover? Am I correct in that assumption? Did you ask that question? Or is there something I missed there? Perfect. So basically, what I can advise you there is very simple, and that's persistence. Like in this field, the people who adapt are the people who will survive. And that is very simple because you're going to run across applications. Now, the first thing, the very first step that you need to do is find the right application. And when you have found the right application, something like Enviso that I've just shown you, it's going to take you at least a week to fully explore it, because you are going to take the manual that comes across with Enviso and you're going to go through every function that exists with burp open in the background. Everything I mean. And then you're going to try and do API calls through Burp Suite, and you're just going to go at it as much as possible as far as your knowledge will reach. And then you're going to go to Google, Wayback Machine. You're going to go to GitHub. You're going to go and try to find parameters which are very, very out of the way. But first, start with the simple shit, my dude. Start with the stuff that you know. Start with not working with APIs. Start with just clicking through the application. And then when you've clicked through the application, you're basically easily able to go through all of these endpoints and test them for access control issues. Especially with what I've been trying to show you guys today. I know it's not been very practical, but I'll have future lessons in which I will show you in a very practical way of how to do what I'm trying to show you or tell you here. Now, it's not simple. I'm trying to say it's not difficult. It's not difficult at all to a degree, because it all comes down to the fact that if you take the highest level account you can, so if you register as an admin, and as an admin you go through the entire website, every fucking thing, every last bit of it, all you have to do is then register an account as an admin. You go to your users and you click on add new user, and you give him no rights at all, the least amount of rights possible. And then you go through your burp suite list, through all of these calls, and you see which of these calls execute a function which you've taken away the rights from that user. So if you see invoices and the user cannot access invoices, you replace the authorization header in the call with the one from the low privileged user. And if it succeeds, if it goes through, it's very clear that there's a broken access control issue going on there. If the user shouldn't have access to invoices, but you're able to execute a call to the invoices by adding a low privileged authorization header, you clearly have an issue there, right? I hope that's clear, man. Now, when you've done that, like when you've done all of this, some applications like this will have different types of accounts you can create as well. So you'll have a user and an account. An account is basically I register with a website and I get an admin user. But the account I register can be the account for my company, and then I get an admin user to that account. So you have the account with different users. You can have different accounts on one system where there's 5 accounts. All of these accounts can have their own layer of users within them, and all of these users have access or not access to different objects and functions. So you have different levels in a pyramid almost. The lowest level is properties. Why? Because there's a billion properties within an application. Every object will have at least 100 properties. That's an exaggeration, but it's just to illustrate a point. Every object will have God knows how many properties. All of these properties might or might not have functions on them. So you can already see a very big layer of properties with functions and objects on top of that. On top of those are users who might or might not belong to certain groups, user groups. And a group can have access to an object or not, and a user can have access to an object or not. And group and user rights might even be conflicting. A group might not have access to a specific object, but a user might have specific access to an object to override that. So then you can come into a scenario where you report a bug that isn't a true bug, because the user that has access to that object belongs to a group that has no access. But that doesn't mean the user itself has no access if those user settings override the group settings. So you can see it's very, very complicated, which is why exactly in the next session that's coming up, I'm going to try and apply this. Like on the target that I've shown you on Enviso, and for that we have to agree that all of us are going to work together on that target, of course, as a team. But I want to show you exactly what I mean, because it's a very difficult thing to explain if you don't show it on a real target. I don't know if you caught the beginning, but at the very start I said this is so difficult because you're all practicing on labs, but to practice on a lab doesn't mean at all that you know how to do this in a real world scenario where you're going to have 500 different APIs with 200 different endpoints each, and each endpoint having different properties which you can manipulate. It's a very different game than when you do a lab that's specifically designed to only have 12 parameters and make it easy to find the one that's vulnerable. I know that that distinction is clear to all of you, but I know that also sometimes it takes some moron like me to say it, where it's like, oh, right, he's correct. And that's often a missing link, and that's also why a lot of people find it so difficult to jump in. But make sure that you don't mix up your phases. If you've ever learned anything about pen testing, it is that there's different phases in a pen test. Your first phases are information gathering, exploration. Don't skip those. A lot of people want to throw themselves into hacking straight up. Don't. Read the fucking manual. take the time to know what each parameter does. If you see a request in Burp Suite, but you don't know what the parameter does, try to find that request again. Trying to change a few things on the screen. Try to see what changes in the request. Try to see what those parameters do. But you have to figure out an application inside and out, and that is what makes bug bounty one of the most difficult topics that there is. It's not just about hacking, it's about application logic. That is the biggest part, is application logic and finding all of the different endpoints which have access to. I hope that answers your question a bit, my friend. I know I can ramble like that. You're doing well, man. Don't give up. I know it can be quite demoralizing to hit your head against the wall like a fucking moron from time to time, but dude, believe me, we all did that. It's good. It's good to hit your head against the wall. It might wake you up sometimes. You wanna know a funny story? The first few reports I made on Hacker1 were so bad I got negative karma and I couldn't post for 30 days. I found a legitimate cross-site scripting in Roblox. Yes, the children's game Roblox, where you entered that in your browser. You entered the name of your world as a cross-site scripting attack vector, and in the desktop client it would pop an XSS attack vector. I actually found that. I couldn't report it for 30 days. After 30 days I reported it and I got a fucking dupe. That's demoralizing. Like, your first 5 reports are so shit you can't post anymore for 30 days, and when you can finally post the thing you actually found is a dupe, that's fucking demoralizing, dude. But I bit through and I just didn't give a fuck. I was like, I am gonna show you that I'm made of something. And I did eventually find my groove. And why is that? Because if you throw me in a lion's cage, I'm a rat. I'll learn how to fight. I'll fight dirty because I'm fighting lions, but I'll fight. That's no problem. I don't give a fuck. If everybody else is looking for technical vulnerabilities and scripting and automating everything, I'm not gonna do that. Why would I do that? Everybody else is doing it anyway. I'm gonna be smart about this. I'm gonna use my wits. I'm gonna try to find parameters in my way, and I'm going to try to look at the JavaScript. And while everybody is frantically hacking and throwing their keyboards at the wall just to type out the fucking script, I'm cozily reading a manual in my bathtub, falling half asleep, just trying to understand the application I'm testing inside and out. And I get bored with the applications I test. At that point, I start to get creative. But you need time, you need to invest, and you need to make sure that you know that that investment could lead to nothing. Very well could lead to nothing, in a sense that you could invest 60 hours into bug hunting. You could very well invest that, but you need to spend that time to know if it will be effective or not. And 60 hours is nothing. I would say, if you want to know if you're really made for bug hunting, how long do you hunt per day, Brave? I'm curious. Just a question. Or per week, that's also fine. It doesn't matter. Mostly 10 hours I see here. So 10 hours per week is per day. What what does that balloon per day? You hunt 10 hours per day. Okay, and how effectively do you hunt during those 10 hours? Like, how long do you stick with one target? We got a 10 hours per day that somebody's hunting, which is great, by the way. I used to hunt 8 hours per day after an 8-hour job, so like, don't blame me for that. But I used to hunt 8 hours per day, and that's at very least something you're going to have to invest is 45 hours per day at the minimum, at the bare minimum. People who say that they hack for 2 to 3 hours per day and they rake in the cash, either they're lying, they're great at automating, or they have found some kind of secret sauce formula that is so fucking secret that they can't share it with the world. But I don't fucking buy it. Like, I don't fucking buy that they are just able to find things in 2 minutes without having proper knowledge of what they're testing. Like, the thing with these types of things is that if you do bug hunting, you need to be on your toes, very, very much so. Because if you are a developer, look at it this way, I can protect 99.9% of my endpoints. I only need to forget one out of a million. You need to only be right on one chance that you take, but you need to make a million chances. Uh-huh. That's a good way to look at it, doesn't it? I do record my time only when I feel actively stick to my screen. I keep it pure learning, hunting time records. What I would suggest is that you stick to the same target for at least a few months, but actually get to know it and explore it, and know hacking first. So with this Enviso, if you want Beluden, you can in this Discord channel, you can send me a little bit of a, like, how should I put this? Like, you can send me a bit of an overview of what you've been testing, and I can't promise I'll get back to you immediately at all, but I will get back to you at a certain point to see what you have been testing as well. Or you can just show me next week, of course, if you are really interested in that. But it's we do these types of things every week, and we have a stand-up weekly as well. By the way, normally today it didn't go through, but that's because I really wanted to be ready for a lesson like this. It's been my first lesson in a long time, and I've really enjoyed it. Now I'm gonna show you guys one more last fucking amazing thing. Check this out. So what I'm showing on my screen now is basically a patch notes. It shows you when which version has been released and what was included in those versions. That's interesting, isn't it? So basically just do your best in mapping out the application as good as humanly possible. If you have to run content discovery in the background, please do. Don't just do enumeration, but also do brute forcing. Both go in harmony. It's like yin and yang. And make sure that you read your fucking documentation, for fuck's sake. You should be documenting these applications yourself. If I ask you what is this application like, I need to get pages and pages of documentation that you've written for yourself. I don't need to get a quick explanation from you, because right now you might remember this, but what if these applications suddenly close their programs and you want to come back to this 5 weeks later? When it reopens, are you still gonna remember what you did then? Do you still know what this application is, what it's like? Do you still know all of the nooks and crannies, all of the special little things that you had to do? I don't. I'm gonna honestly say that I'm not smart enough to remember that kind of shit. If you are, that's fantastic, but believe me, I'm not. So I don't like to trust on my memory. And one thing that I can recommend you is just record everything you do while you're hunting for yourself. You don't have to share that with the world. But if you have something tomorrow and you're like, I'm so sure there was a bug there yesterday, you can just look back at your recordings. That's a little bit of a pro tip from Uncle Rat. Also, if you don't exactly remember how you got into a certain screen, just look back at your recordings. I mean, your notes are fine, your notes are dandy, but if you missed to note down something, then you still have that recording, right? My friends, this lesson was supposed to take an hour. It's already taken 2 hours and 13 minutes. Is there anything else I can help you with? Because I'd love to answer questions, of course, if there are. If there aren't, Sorry, go ahead, Brave. Mm-hmm. So problem is the question that you've asked me is incorrect. If you look back at the recordings, and I'll share those as well, but the recordings, you will see very easily that I said that you shouldn't be looking for bugs, you should be looking for ways to find bugs. Like learning a bug, to be fair, you should learn as many bugs as humanly possible. That is obvious, but there are so many that you can learn that you can infinitely go on. If you just learn a couple basic ones, and this is why I'm starting with broken access control, but broken access control alone is enough to hunt, guys. Broken access control is sufficient to go hunt and find a lot of stuff if you pick the right target. If you don't, well then duh, that's up to you, that you picked the wrong target, dummy. What do you want me to say? But basically, no, I'm joking, by the way. I'm joking about the dummy stuff. But no, you really do need to pick a good target. You need to actively hunt for a couple of months on that one target for that one vulnerability type. But the advantage is that if you know multiple vulnerability types, you can use that to identify more parameters that you can test for different vulnerability types. Because the whole goal is, if you test your application, you want to identify any identifier, because that references an object. So you want to go and look at all of the parameters that are identifiers, and that's what you test for IDOR. You're not gonna test a search bar of a website for IDOR. You're just not. So it's simple. Learn what type of parameters are vulnerable, and for IDOR you can very easily do that. Now it may be a little bit more difficult if you don't have practical experience, but what I'm going to do for you there is I'm going to set up a video, or like I'm going to link a little bit of a video from yours truly here about authorize. And authorize teaches you how to, ooh, fuck, I might not be sharing my screen anymore. Authorize is going to learn or teach you how to actually look for IDORs in a semi-automated way. So there we go. I also have this one, copy link address. I keep getting a lot of questions about it, but authorize is a great extension in that regard. Now, if you know SQL injection, then you're also able to identify any parameters that do SQL queries like create, read, update, delete, and you're able to test those for SQL injection. If you also know XSS, you're able to test parameters which reflect back into pages, and you might be able to pop an XSS that way. So it's all about the more you know, the more you can test the target. But that also means that if you know a target, you can keep going through a target once you learn new vulnerability types. Because you have the parameters from previous explorations, you have them all. So you can just, you don't even need to do the walking stage again. You can just start with finding the right parameters. That can be the number one priority at that point, where other people might have to. And the good thing is, when you retest, you might also get new ideas. Like when you see these parameters and you go through your list in burp suite again, you might be, oh, wait a second, I haven't seen that parameter before in depth. Let's go and see what that does. Oh, will you look at that? That's another issue. So make sure that you're able to identify these types of parameters for which you're learning the attack vectors. And how can you do that? From the start, from the very first lab that you do, try to very clearly take in mind how you'd find that specific parameter if it were a bigger application. What is so special about that parameter at that point? And if it's about IDORs, it's very simple. It's an identifier. It'll say ID equals. That is your clue there. If it's a broken access control, you're looking for functions there. So you're looking for any endpoint, you're not looking for a parameter at that point. quite a few things that we could say about that, but I hope that helps a little bit. As a beginner, one type is enough, more than enough, as long as you're more than willing to retest an application. A lot of people think they're above retesting and the only one who do the real quote-unquote impactful attacks. Stop thinking about attacks. Start thinking about exploration. How does this application work? What kind of access control is applied here? How is that access control applied? Any way I could bypass the application of the access control? I must test all of the endpoints that have that access control applied. I must have all of the parameters that have that access control applied. It's basically a cat and mouse game. Like, we're just trying to catch the developer off guard because we know that all of these developers know how to write secure code. Like, $1 million company isn't going to invite shit developers into their ecosystem. They're just not gonna do that. They're going to know that, like, the people they hire, they know what they're fucking doing. They have expertise in that kind of stuff. So it's important to realize that what we are trying to do is not to spot that major flaw throughout the entire application, but we are just trying to spot the parameter that has that flow within it, or flaw, I should say. Anyway, ladies and gents, I hope you enjoyed that. If there are more questions, I'm gonna ask you to type them out in the chat, but don't hesitate to type them out because I'm more than willing to answer them. It's just that at this moment I'm going to take a little bit of a break myself. My voice is hoarse and I want to vape some broccoli. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for showing up. Really, really appreciate it as always.